this awesome presentation that Mandheer and Jessica had for us. We will be having a campfire at 9, so just be looking forward to that. But for now, Mandheer is going to continue with kind of where we left off with the relationship between Sevak, Satguru, and Moheguru. So Mandheer is going to be delving in a little bit more for that. Mandheer has been a very active member of Gurmat camps and retreats for many, many years. I myself remember Reggie being our camp teacher and being very inspired by him. So we're excited to have Reggie here today to just kind of delve in a little bit further. And without further ado, after Reggie finishes his photo op.
Just before I start, I just kind of want to lay out a little bit that I want it to be a good discussion. I want to present a good presentation here, but I also like to just do things in fun. And part of that is, coming up with fun titles that are interesting to me. The Guru Nexus. Anybody know what a Nexus is, except for anybody that's told specifically what a Nexus is? Anybody else have an idea?
A tablet.
A Nexus tablet?
It's the like, it's a star.
Go ahead.
There's like a central area from which everything comes out of.
Well, that's good. Anybody else?
A gateway.
Gateway, that's better. I like that better. That's a lot of something. So a nexus is like a bridge or something that connects two things. Okay. In science fiction, it comes up quite a bit as a tear of space-time continuum, and somehow two opposite ends of the universe are connected through a wormhole or something. That may be called a nexus. Google Android phone nexus, connecting people, whatever. So that's why I use the word nexus. The Guru is something that connects us to Akal Purakh. So the subtitle, A Sikh Journey to Akal Purakh. And yes, I made my own graphics here. I'm very proud of this graphic. It has inspired me to write a science fiction novel based on the Guru. So maybe one day I'll get to that. All right, so what this is not. Okay, I just want to kind of get into this a little bit. I'm not doing katha. I'm not preaching. I don't mean to, come across like, hey, this is the way it is. This is what it is. I'm going to do a little bit of that, but if you know me, you know my personality. I like to challenge people. I like to shake them up a little bit. If you tell me the sky is blue, I'll argue that it's purple sometimes. Just for the sake of it. I'm going to do something similar. So even though I'm telling you I'm not preaching, I'm not doing that, I might do a little bit of preaching at you, just to get us to get past certain points, or maybe to challenge what we normally think about things. In doing so also, I don't mean to contradict anything that anybody has said that came before me, or anything that we're going to talk about tomorrow. Sometimes I'm only just throwing that out there to make you think. It makes me think too. Okay, so this also is not academic or scholarly work. I've not done a ton of research. If you ask me for references, I may not be able to give you the exact references. I'm sharing a lot of what I learned. I'm trying to put some ideas that I've had into this presentation so that we can talk about it. But it's not technical, it's not academic, it's not scholarly. It's definitely not me trying to take this concept of Waheguru and stick it in a box. Okay? I don't want to come across as there's a definitive way or a definition, or that I know something, don't know anything. Ravani keeps telling us these are things that we can't even know. Really, these are things that we need to do and experience. So I'm not trying to define anything specific, that this is the Sikh way, this is how it has to be, or that Waheguru is this thing. Okay? And finally, for anybody that's had discussions with me in the past couple of years, knows my favorite topic, and it always comes up at all the gatherings we're at. This is not about ancient aliens. I was so tempted to put ancient aliens into this presentation, but it is not that. Sorry for you. All right, so some of the key concepts. I just want to throw some things out there that I'm going to use these concepts to tell a story. Okay? One thing is, as much as we've been telling everybody, there's Waheguru, there's Sadguru, there's us, the same, what we are. Gurbani also tells us that there's no difference between Waheguru, Sadguru, the Guru, Shabad. Okay, so there's no difference. People use analogies like H2O, it's water, it's ice, it's steam, it's the same H2O, whatever. But for the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. But depending on the context of Gurbani, sometimes Guru does refer to Satguru as Waheguru. Satguru Parameshwar Mera, Anikraj Mohammed Asmani, Naam Japi Parva Satdeva. Satguru Parameshwar Mera. Satguru is my God. Okay? And I enjoy countless tastes and pleasure jumping the Naam of God, having faith in that Naam. Okay, yeah, that's another thing. I make up words. I probably use this phrase, jumping Naam. I mean to say that you do Naam jump, or you have to jump Naam. Jumping Naam is just some Funglish type of thing. Okay? And Guru does sometimes refer to the Guru as Satguru. Like in this Shabad, Satguru Data Har Naam Ka, Rab Aap Milare Soye, Satguru Har Rab Pujiya, Guru Jeevat Aur Na Koi. Alright, in this Shabad, Satguru Data Har Naam Ka. So Satguru is the giver, has the gift of Naam. And Prabh, the God, Vaheguru, is who's going to introduce you. Okay? Satguru Har Rab Pujiya. Pujiya is understood. The Satguru understands what Waheguru is. And Guru Jeevat Aur Na Koi. Nobody as great as him. Okay? So clearly there is in this Shabad there is a Satguru, there is a Prabh, and they're both referenced. And there's praise given to the Guru too. Okay? Another concept I want to cover is this idea of, this is your Atma, this is the Paramatma. There's no, imagine this black boundary is not there. Everything is just white and endless. Okay, so the Paramatma is Waheguru, is God. Endless, not contained, all everywhere. The Atma, which is our soul, Paramatma is the ultimate soul, the supreme soul. That's what Paramatma means. And then the Atma is our soul. And it is the same stuff that is out here is here. Except there is this boundary that contains it and separates it from the Paramatma. And that boundary is the Man. And if we were to zoom in on that boundary, it might look a lot like this. You might have layers of Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, God surrounding the Atma. Okay? The Guru in this idea here is something that interjects through the mind, and creates a bridge breaks that barrier there and creates a bridge out into here. So the Atman Paramatma. So the Guru is this thing that is capable of busting through all that, or piercing it. I should really say the Guru is piercing it, and then he's going to arm you. He's going to give you some weapons, okay, so that you can destroy all of this that is keeping you separated. We've all heard the idea that Guru is an enlightener. Guru is the dispeller of darkness. So keep that in mind too, that the Guru is something that enlightens. So if this is all light, and this is light, this is where all the darkness is that needs to get dispelled. Those weapons that the Guru arms us with are Seva, Simran, Shabad, and we can debate about what Seva actually means, what Simran actually means, and what the Shabad actually is. But let's just say we know that these are the weapons we get. Okay, the Guru is going to give us these weapons, and he's going to pierce our man, and interject the weapons here for us, and then we are going to be able to use those weapons to bust out in all directions. Okay? So this is one of the concepts that I'm kind of relying on to tell the story here. Let me just check my notes real quick. Yeah, well, there's shabds like Mandheer Lagaya, what is it? Sun Gur Bachan, Mandheer Lagaya. Sun Gur Bachan, listen to the Guru's Bachan, the words, the order. Here, that's coming up. Mandheer Lagaya. So listening to those words, my mind is getting pierced. So Guru Sahib is actually saying that. So I kind of made the slide, but I didn't make up the concept. So I also want to make that clear. Now, maybe you could argue that it's not literal or whatever, but that's what I'm going with here. And then, sorry, I'm going to go to it there, so. There's a couple other shabds. There's a shabd that Kabirji has in the Gurmat side that is about how your mind is a castle guarded by Dhan, Krodh, Lobh, God. There's a stubborn, rebellious man, your mind, sitting there guarded by this expert warrior. And in that shabd, it's not catching up. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, okay, so in this shabd, what's actually interesting is these warriors that are guarding this rebellious mind of ours that's stuck and stubborn and does not want to jump nam. These guys are excellent archers and very difficult to defeat. And the shabd actually has really awesome imagery. I'm not going to go into all of that, but it's things like, Dok and Suk are guarding the gates. You got all these concepts that Gurmat talks about in other shabd, and how your ego is the real badass fighter, the last guy standing before you get to the king. So it even kind of gives the order of who the easy ones are to get rid of, and then who the biggest, baddest warriors at the end is going to be hard to defeat. And actually, if you go, maybe just go a couple more lines. Yeah, just something to keep going. What's interesting is, Kabirji describes what I'm going to call a Nam bomb. Okay? He basically says, I'm going to take the Guru's word and ignite this cannon, and in one shot, that cannon is going to crumble that entire castle. It's the cannonball is Nam. It's a bomb that's just going to destroy everything. So, the Guru does tell us that our mind is stubborn, it will not want to break down and go away, and we need to use these weapons to destroy our ego, ultimately destroy our ego. And when you think about it, ego is your self-identity, it's who you are. So when who you are disappears in your spiritual journey, what's left? It's just, it's Paramatma. Your Atma and Paramatma, they're with you. There's no difference. Okay? Alright, so to help me tell the story, I'm going to get the help of my buddy here. He's Amar. He's going to be the hero of our story. Okay? Amar likes to travel. He likes to experience new things. He considers himself a spiritual person. He's a good husband, a great father, an honest entrepreneur, a homeowner. He likes to do volunteer work. Not unlike many of us, not unlike many of people who existed over time. Okay? And he's going to go on a journey. He's going to go on a journey. We're going to go with him. Like travel across the world. Okay. So one of the things that Omar likes to do is he likes to go on these travels to foreign places, exotic places, and meditate. He's meditated with the Buddhist monks. He's meditated in India, with the yogis. And this is how he grounds himself. He makes a trip once or twice a year. He gets married, he buys a house, he gets a family, does his work, finds a honest living, hardworking guy. But the stress of all that eventually starts to get to him, And then when he starts thinking about all the things that are going on in his life, it gets him down. Every time he gets down, boom, book a ticket, and go on a trip. Oh, no. Yeah, he's always naked. He's obviously represented. Okay, he's a generic. He likes to go to exotic places like I told you, do yoga, and this does this cycle constantly. You know, he goes back to his family, but dealing with all the bills in the house, the kids, the work, getting stressed out, travel, yoga, meditate. Just keep going in this circle. Okay? All right. So one day, when Omar's on his trip in India, he meets another guy that kind of likes him. This guy's got a funny mark on his forehead. He lives in the library. Yeah, so we'll call him Harry Potter. Okay, so he meets Harry Potter. Okay, him and Harry Potter become good friends. And Harry Potter and Umar decide that for the remaining of this trip, they'll just stay together. They can save a little money, they can keep the same room, they'll stay together, they'll eat together, they'll talk, they'll have discourse, they'll figure out, they'll figure out their lives. So they sit down to eat, and what happens is, in their discussion, Harry Potter says to Umar, he goes, "Hey Umar," because Harry Potter's into magic, right? He's like into all these different things. He says, "Hey, where'd you learn all your stuff? How'd you learn about this? Who's your guru?" And Umar says, "What are you talking about? I don't have a guru." And Harry Potter's freaked out. Okay, he's like, "What?" And Umar doesn't get it. He's like, "I don't understand. I don't understand what's going on." He's like, "You have no guru." He's like, "I am now impure by association with you. I shared food with you. I spent all this time with you, and now you have not only are you impure, you are making me impure." Alright? So Omar's like, what the hell? And I thought we were getting along good, and now this guy comes at me with all this, you don't have a guru stuff. So he starts to think about this, and he's like, do I need a guru? Is that something I need? Am I missing something? Is that guy just a jerk? Or was he right about something? Okay? Alright. So on his way back, he gets on the plane, looks out the window, and he sees the Varsav from the window. He jumps out of his seat, and he punches the cockpit, starts banging on the cockpit door. He's like, "Let me in, you gotta land this plane, you gotta land this plane." So they're like, okay, they land the plane, and he gets a closer He gets a closer look at the Varsav. He's like, man, this is good. Yeah, I like this place. So he puts on his... he puts his rumal on, which I forgot to mention. He's from Canada. He puts his rumal on, he goes into the Varsav, he says, "I'm telling the story, in my version of the story, in their Varsav, a woman was doing kirtan, and she was brown." Just as a side note, in case you didn't know, women are not allowed to do kirtan at the Varsav. It's a totally ridiculous rule. They made an exception, like once or twice, for like when the American Sikhs come from here and go over there, they will make exceptions. They have made an exception to allow a woman from America to do kirtan there because it's like a special thing. But in general, women are not allowed. But in my story, they're allowed. And she was doing kirtan, and she's doing the shabad, "Paya manur kanchan fir hove, jaygur mile tanyeha." So he's like hearing this. Now he just got done talking to Harry Potter, and now he hears this shabad. Paya manur kanchan fir hove. Manure is like the filth and soot and things like that get stuck to iron when you heat iron. Okay? The Kanchan fir hove means that it becomes gold. Jaygur mile tanyeha, if you meet the guru. So even a dirty, filthy, rusted, impure piece of iron can turn to gold if it needs to be. So now he's thinking, because he's like, this has got to mean something. Alright, so at this point in the story, I want to just stop for a second, and I want to reflect on some of the points that I just talked about, and maybe get your guys' take on some of the things that are going on with Umar. For example, what do you guys think about Umar being a spiritual person? And obviously he's implemented some kind of spirituality in his life, but what value does that have, and is it enough? And anything you guys want to mention about anything I talked about so far, please go ahead and just blurt it out. But I'm gonna, if I don't get a hand, I'm gonna start calling on. Now point at you, my baby.
Just do it any way you feel. Just get it impact.
And I think it's something we forget. And I was talking to Claude about this, I don't know, he's here, but this answers his question a little bit. It's, even in the good moments, there's definitely those worries, those anxieties, all of those things that we forget that bring us down, even when we feel like we're high on life. But that cycle seems to capture the greater need for something.
Anybody else? Comment?
It's like he has spirituality but no guidance.
Okay, that's a great observation. Oh, Raina just said that it's like he has spirituality, but he has no guidance. Okay. Anything else? Anybody notice anything else? Okay, go ahead.
Just from the sound, just flowing through life.
Okay, very good point. And that's kind of what I was trying to get at. How many of us are just kind of floating through life? You know, we got school, you know, we got work. Before you know you're married, then when you're married, all of a sudden you got kids. I mean, like it happens kind of fast. And all the time you're thinking, oh yeah, I wanted to do a stage walk. Oh yeah, I wanted to memorize Japji Sahib. Oh yeah, I was going to go to that smaga, but then I was tired from work, so I didn't even bother. Or whatever it is. Even simple things, like there are so many resources on the internet, Sikh-wise. There's a lot of junk out there too, but there's a lot of resources. All about Sikhs.com. I mean, they got a lot of great, like, quick references. So even if you wanted to just kind of get started reading history and kind of understanding history, there's a lot you can do. In English, in Punjabi, whatever you want to do. There's a lot. But we think we want to do these things. We think we're going to spend some time and read blog. I mean, several years ago, we did this Asadivar group presentation thing. And basically in one weekend, we had 6 3-hour sessions. And we just got through as much as we could. Well, we only got through half. How many years ago was that now? It's even like 4 or 5 years? We've been meaning to finish for so long. I mean, this is what happens, because life kind of gets ahead of us. Because we're in that cycle. We're in that cycle. I've heard people say, oh, I go to a retreat and I get recharged. Or I go to a smagam and I get recharged. Well, that's not what the Guru tells us. The Guru doesn't say get recharged and get excited and do a little bit and then stop. There's no battery that should be fading out. We're looking for that stable, that contentment, that sag, that natural flow of our actions, our thinking, our flowing, the living.
But just to build on that, a question, is it...
Here, give it.
Just a question to build on that. Isn't that roller coaster of emotions also part of the experience of Gurbani? Because Gurbani also goes through, different emotions, virag and an intense emotion. And that's not unlike what you were just explaining in the cyclical Amritsar.
No, I think that's a really good point. But here's what I think the Guru did. The Guru understood that we go through cycles in life, and then use those emotions to get us someplace better. Okay? So even though we experience happiness when something fun happens, and so when Guru Sahib tells us the ultimate happiness is this is the ultimate run, we at least have a glimpse of an idea of what direction that emotion is in. Right? So it's true with all of the idea of longing. Longing for Waheguru is way beyond our real capacity. Okay? We will think we're longing, we will think we want to do things, but your mind is really, really tricky and really, really well guarded by things like your ego. And those kinds of things can take you off just like so subtly. Just like something small can get stuck in your head and you're really just justifying your own thinking. And actually, I've had this discussion with many people before, but one thing is like when we read Gurbani, a lot of us come to Gurbani with some preconceived notions, right? You have this idea that I have to be a vegetarian, or you have the idea that it's okay to eat meat. When you go to Gurbani and you think that way, you will find the support for both sides. You might say, oh, I just need to be a good person. If you have that idea in your head and you go through Gurbani, your brain, your mind will find ways to interpret what you're reading to justify what you already think. The trick is to to not have your own ideas. You try to read Gurbani in a way that is like a blank slate. Okay? Any other points? Anything else anybody got out of this before I start part 2? Are we excited for part 2?
Well, reminds me of a story you ever know somewhere.
No, just 2 seconds. I know where you're going. I already know where you're going. Okay. Part 2. I can't. So part 2 here. Something starts to change inside Omar. Okay? He keeps reflecting on that Shabad that so now that's starting to resonate with him, that he understands this idea that he needs to have a guru and he needs to do something. So he's gone to Purakh Sahib and he started extracting these ideas and implementing them. As his thinking is changing, his actions are changing. And as his actions are changing, his identity is changing. Now, one note about identity. A couple months ago, I did a talk at U of M about Sikh identity. And when I was looking up the word identity, I found that it was interesting that the Latin root for identity is to be identical to. We don't think about that. When we say Guru Sahib gave us the Sikh identity, he gave us how to be identical to him. Okay? So it's more than just, this is who I am because of the way I dress. It's how you think, it's how you act, it's how you become more Guru-like, how you become more identical to the Guru, your identity. Okay? That's what's happening here. So yeah, he's changing, his physical form is changing a little bit. And he starts to find other shabads that support this idea. Gur Paras Hamlo, Milkanchan Hoyaram. Similar concept. Paras, who knows what Paras is? Besides me. Go ahead. No. No, it's not. Football.
It's a philosopher's stone.
Philosopher's stone. Who knows what the philosopher's stone is? Besides Puneet. Yes.
It's like a thing in alchemy where it's based on that to change any metal.
That is right. The philosopher's stone is a mythological rock that when you rub it against metal, in this case, hamlo, iron. Guru Paras, Guru is the stone, the philosopher's stone. I am iron. Milkanchan Hoyaram. When you rub them together, my iron form becomes gold, becomes one with God. So there's a connection here. He's reinforcing it. He loves singing these shabads. He's finding shabads that are more and more similar to these ideas, and he starts practicing them. Comes across this shabad. Guru Satguru ka jo Sikh hai, so palke uth har naam tyag. Whoever wants to call themselves a Sikh of the Guru will get up early and meditate on Wahiguru's name. Okay. Now this whole shabad has a lot of references to doing what the Guru tells you to in meditating on Wahiguru. And from the previous workshops, it's already been discussed, but I just want to reinforce that point. We follow the Guru. The Guru tells us what to do, but we do bhakti of Wahiguru. We worship and praise Wahiguru. That's the relationship between us and Wahiguru. We worship Wahiguru. We follow the Guru. The Guru knows Pujya. He knows Wahiguru. He understands them because they're the same. The Guru is a vehicle for the Wahiguru. Alright, so now what happens is he starts practicing what the shabads are telling him. Every morning he wakes up and he does some Wahiguru Simran. And again, I don't want to get into debate about actually physically saying Wahiguru, Wahiguru over and over, or Naam Simran is something else, but whatever you think it is, do it. Starts doing his nitnem and reading more and more Gurbani. So now he's really starting to dig in and make it into his daily practice. Because of that, he starts to build this feeling of doing Seva. So he starts cleaning at the Gurdwara, And he's not doing seva, but he's doing seva of Guru Kar because it is the Guru's Kar. It is the place of the Guru. That's why he does the seva. He's not doing the seva because there's a lot of people coming and they're going to need to clean Gurdwara, or they need to eat a lot of food, so he's got to make longer, like in this picture. He's doing the seva because these are the Guru's concept. This is the Guru's construction. So he wants to do seva of the Guru. That picture was very hard to do. Okay, so another change that starts to happen. He starts to look at himself. He's like, I used to feel like I am Amar. But now, he's thinking, Mantu Jotsu Kat, Apna Mukh Pachan. So, oh my mind, you are the form of the light. Recognize what you really are. So before he thought he was Amar, I am Amar. Now he's saying, no, you are not Amar, you are the light. Okay? So something is changing in his mind. He used to think, I must provide for my family. Now he thinks, Jin Upaya Medni, Soy Gardasa. Okay? The one that created everything takes care of it all. Okay? Here he thought he was providing. Now he realizes there's something else providing. Waheguru is the provider. He is just a vehicle. He is just playing here. In essence, what is happening is he is losing his manmat by doing the Naam Simran, the Seva, reading Gurbani, and he is replacing it with Gurmat. Okay? So that doesn't mean he stops being a family man or stops being a businessman. He still has his family. They're just kind of slow to change because I didn't have time to do all of that. But the changes are starting to take effect because he implemented those things in his life. He didn't preach to them that they had to do it. He didn't have to do anything like that. He changed himself, and the people around him started to change. Even the people he works with. He's at work, he's sitting at his desk, and hey, Omar, I've got a question. I know you really do all this spirituality and stuff, but what does your religion say about why there's bad things in the world? Okay? So Omar will take a break from typing an email or whatever and just be like, well, here's what I think. And he'll explain what he understands that his guru is telling him. He says, I don't really know what's right or wrong, but this is what the guru says. That's replacing your manmat with gurmat. And still living your life. Still being a part of society. You don't have to run off into the mountains and get yogi like Mohanbal was saying earlier. Not that he was saying to do that, that he was saying that that's what people used to do. That's the yogis used to do. And just to kind of interject in that, like, when we talked about yoga, and I think you asked a question about yoga. Yoga as exercise, I think there's nothing wrong with that. Martial arts, weightlifting, running, whatever you want to do. But the idea of using it for spirituality is different than what the Guru is saying. The Guru is giving us something else to do other than those things as a way to find immortality or find a way to be with God. And another thing. I know I'm using words like God sometimes as habit. I know there's a Christian annotation with God. But God has many names. Gurbani tells us that you call him Ram, Allah, God, whatever you want to call him. Why Guru, it doesn't matter. When I say that, I'm talking about the Paramatma, the ultimate being, Har, Ram, whatever, it doesn't matter. Alright, so we're going to take another quick break, or not break, but like a quick moment here to reflect and have a community discussion. Alright, so what do people see happening in Umar's life right now? The one thing I want to mention is on the first section, when he was destroying Kalam, we're talking about a reduction in desires. Right? We're talking about what he wants or what he's driven by, his, whatever drives him. When we think about, I want to have a lot of money, I want to be rich, that greed, the attachment we have to our kids, that we treat our kids different than we treat other people's kids. Or really what that's about, I shouldn't even use that as an example. Because I know that question comes up all the time. Why wouldn't you be attached to your kids? Naturally you would be, we were built biologically to be. The attachment to your family, your children, your parents, your brothers, your sister, that attachment is bad if it's distracting you from Waigu. Anything that distracts you from Waigu in Gurmani is considered bad or evil, quote unquote. Okay? But what do you think about Umar becoming more quote unquote Guru-like? Was that? Seems nice and good.
There was a cycle that was defined earlier on, and it sounds like he is breaking that cycle at various points and redefining his storage, which is being shown, especially with the way he looks, as the way he interacts with everyone else, and so it's kind of coming in other parts of his life. Beginning with that cycle.
Very good point. He's not in that cycle where he's feeling like he has to go somewhere else to try to find that peace that he's looking for. It's become a part of his thinking, it's become a part of his daily actions, even though he still carries out his normal life. Yeah, just say that.
Isn't how like the ups and downs that he used to get sad and like happy? It's just like in one constant on and on.
Okay. So no ups and downs and emotions. Okay.
I had an original point, but then I wanted to add that, like, we think that it's like no ups and downs, but we don't, like, a person when they realize, they're all that was potential and they're, the joke inside, it's not that they become emotionless or divided of emotion, it's that it becomes, like, they understand Purakh. They understand that it's not that they don't have to feel happy or sad, it's just like where that happiness or sadness comes from. And so that's what I saw him, like when he saw that man so like it's so why is there, like there's no need to be mad or happy about it because it's just a thing. So it's not under my control. So that's a huge difference when that happens.
The reaction to what he's experiencing in terms of emotions, they're not as vibrant, they're not as intense as they were before. They're more subtle, but he has an effect on that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. But in general, think about it this way. Our mind wants to react. When something bad happens, our mind wants to jump and react. Even if you're thinking you're doing the right thing. I'm saying this in a context. Like if you saw an accident happen, you saw someone get hurt, you want to jump and go and save them and be a hero. And then you might even feel good about it afterwards. That's how tricky your mind can be, though. It may be having the wrong reaction because it wants to feel good about itself. As opposed to, you jump to action because you saw one of Waifu's creation being hurt and you saw that your duty to help. And there's no feeling of like, oh, I did something great. I helped somebody. I saved a life. You didn't do it. Waifu is doing that. You're a hero for that. Go ahead.
That happens to me when I, like, again, I'm using I when I write sometimes. And when someone says that, oh, you read that's like, wait, I want to say, and I do say that, no, I'm not writing, it's like, it comes to me, but then it's like, why, is it just me that when people say that it's not me, I'm not doing it, does it sound pretentious?
It can. I mean, it can, right?
Yeah.
It can. I'm not going to lie, it's going to sound pretentious. If you say, well, it's not me, it's coming from something else. I mean, even I did mistake that. People may have thought he was pretentious when he said that. Like, who are you, man? What do you mean? You got that line to God, You don't know. But be honest and truth with yourself. I mean, if you're feeling inspired, something's coming from within, you're just saying what you feel. But one thing about like how we process stuff, we need to be careful. We need to remember that we don't want to act mean. Now we all do. None of us are beyond that. Okay, I'm the last person to talk about like not having an ego, but we have to be aware of it. We have to be thinking about it. That's why there's admitting it, because you have to be reminded of where we go. I mean, I guarantee you, Kobe Bryant, I was going to say Shaquille O'Neal, but not Shaquille O'Neal, but LeBron James, these guys, they still practice free throws. The most basic thing in basketball is stand in one spot and they practice. These guys are the best in the world. They don't need to practice free throws, is what we think. but they have to do their nickname. Same thing. It's basic, it seems redundant, it seems whatever, but even the best in the world, even the gurus, Guru Gobind Singh did his nickname. That's why he told us to do it. And when you think about that Guru Sahib's words that came out of his mouth every day, we recite those same words. That's how you connect with the Guru. That's how you build that relationship. Lorraine.
Can you go back to the slide on goddess? Because it reminded me of the Shabad that
not only says that meeting with the Guru, or it says meeting with the Guru, we not only become Guru-like, but we become goddess-like. So what you were saying about identity, meaning taking the form of, so I think the Shabad is goddess, parsya, goddess, which is like an even greater kind of identification with the other.
I think this is where the whole idea of Sangat comes in, okay? When we do what the Guru tells us, when we adopt the Guru's identity, when we practice what the Guru's practiced, and other people see it, they're not seeing what they're getting impressed by. We think, oh, they're getting impressed by me because look at the awesome Malai tie, and I do my nickname really nice, and they're getting impressed by the Guru quality. So, yeah, in a way, that's what Sangat does. When the Sangat is there in Guru Sahib's Huzuri, they're adopting and listening and focusing their attention on Gurbani, that effect is happening on everybody sitting there together. Okay? Any other comments or reflections before I move on to part 3? Okay, let's get caught up here. So Manmat to Gurmat, still doing his life. Okay, part 3 is going to be pretty short. It's going to go kind of quickly, but I want people to be open to discuss further. Okay, so we talked about like replacing Manmat with Gurmat, becoming more Guru-like, and what that means in your life. Okay? So, Amar now, Atma Paramatma Eko Kare. Antar ki dugda antar mare. Atma Paramatma Eko Kare. Atma and the Paramatma become one. Okay? So Gurbani saying this. I know I drew a diagram. There's no diagram in Gurbani, but I drew the diagram. That's why I drew it, because it says that this happens. Antar ki dugda. What is dugda? Duality, doubt, dilemma. It's confusion. It's your mind doing this to you. It wants to be right. It wants to win. It does not want to die. So it'll keep you in doubt. This way or that way? I went there and they said this, and I went there and they said this. I want to keep my hair, but I don't know if I want to keep my hair. You know, like, there's all these things that our mind is going to constantly do to us. It's going to keep you in that dukkha. But as you adopt Gurmat, and the mind gets erased, there's no dukkha left anymore. And to highlight this point, pull up the shoulder. I'm singing it in my head, and I'm not going to sing it out loud just so I get the words right. Bavajal bin shabde kyun tariye. Yeah, naam bina. Dubada dub dub mare. Dubada, right?
Yeah, Dubida dub dub.
Yeah, Maria. Yeah. Oh, okay, there you go. Here's telling us flat out that without the naam, you're going to stay stuck in this duality, and you will drown over and over again and keep you dying. Now, in Gurbani, the references are there, so I'm going to use this as the philosophy. Again, this is things people can debate about, scholars, philosophers, whatever. But the idea of this birth and death cycle, that we're constantly being born and dying, and that's where our suffering lies. The idea of the Guru is to destroy that cycle, get you out of that birth-death cycle, and become one with Waheguru. That's the only way. Because Waheguru is never born. Because he's never born, he never dies. He's not in that game. We are. We're constantly being born and dying. Our actions, good deeds or bad deeds. Okay, Pap and Pun. In Gurbani it comes up also, Pap and Pun are the same. What Guru Sahib is saying when he says they're the same, It's like this here. Some of this stuff is by the seat of my pants and on the fly, so. You got Bob.
Can't see it.
Okay, well, here, just an idea. This is Bob, this is Bun. And as you do bad things, they get put on this side of your ledger. And as you do good things, and Gurmat tells us this, that all of our actions, all of our deeds, thought and fun, are being written down. Okay? And then if you're a really good person and you do a lot of volunteer work and you help other people and you don't have a big ego, about stuff, you're getting more funds written over here. And Guru Sahib is telling us that the more of these you have and the less of these you have, by Guru's grace, you will meet the Guru. Now, meeting the Guru doesn't necessarily mean just meeting the Guru and shaking his hand and seeing him there. It means something more. I think Guru Balvirji had pointed out that Guru Angad Dev Ji, when he had met Guru Nanak Dev Ji earlier in his life, didn't know who he was, didn't understand, continued his life for many years, and then later on, when he was ready to meet the Guru, something changed. So when we talk about meeting the Guru, Gurbani is telling us, through your good deeds, because you're a Vadapagi means that your great fortune came from doing these good deeds, you met the Guru. And then if you do what the Guru says, which is Jap Nam erases all of these, your good deeds and your bad deeds. And it isn't until all your good and bad deeds are erased that you become Atma Paramatma Gare. That's what happens, because all of this has been erased through Nam. Okay? Where am I at? Was that the discussion part or no? Oh, okay, yeah. The other thing is, we talked about the Lama earlier, and we recite these at marriage ceremonies because it's something symbolic. Each Lam represents something in our process, in our journey. At this stage, Jan Nanak Bole Choti Lala Har Paya Prabh Avanasi. So it's telling us that the fourth Lam, the fourth stage, the final stage, come one or wider. Okay? So this is what we will call being a winner in life, the game of life. This is how you succeed. All right, but there's something I didn't tell you about the story. This is in fact a true story, and I actually know this guy. But I don't really know him. I should say I know of him. Okay? More than likely, you guys all know him too. Because Amar is actually Amar Das, as in Guru Amar Das. They had the same life. All I did is change the setting a little bit to make a point. This is something real. This is something that is actual. We can sit here and say that, oh, that's all philosophy. Mandheer Singh was up here telling us that you do this and that will happen. But this is what actually happened. This is how Guru Amar Das Ji became the Guru. Guru Amar Das Ji was a successful farmer, business person. He farmed and sold what he farmed and made money. He did very good at that. He got married. He had children. He went to his pilgrimages every year. He was a worshiper of Vishnu, like one of these yogi types, where you meditate and do yoga and things like this to learn to become close with God. While on one of those pilgrimages, he met somebody and they stayed together. They ate together. And that guy asked him, who's your guru? Because like Mohanpal Singh was saying earlier, they had a system, like the Sikh lords. Actually, this is Star Wars reference. Sikh lords always had a master and a disciple. That's how they survived for so long. It's the same concept. These yogis, there's a guru and a chela. So when this guy asked Guru Amardas, before he was Guru, but he asked him, who's your Guru? And he's like, I don't have a Guru. And his response was, you're Nigura. Like, I want to make sure I said that right. Nigura. Basically saying, you were somebody without a Guru. I can't even be near you or touch you. Everything I've worked for, you've made impure. And that put Guru Amardas Ji into this thinking of, wait a minute, what am I doing? I need a Guru. I need something. And he started to want and long for this idea. And having those feelings, when he was visiting his brother, so Guru Amardas Ji's nephew was married to Bibi Amro. He heard Bibi Amro singing the Shabad, that Peyaman Kanchan Fer Hove, Jai Guru Mileta Nina. And it struck a chord with him because he had just had this experience of being called Nigura. And he wanted to, so he was receptive. Now he hears the Shabad and he's like, there's something here. He tells her, sing more Shabads for me, because she was really good at singing. And she did it. She sang other Shabads. He's like, whose body is this? She told him that it is the body of her father, Guru Angad. He's like, I gotta meet him. So he goes to meet the Guru. And because he was a hardworking, honest person, humble person, he got the idea that since he liked the Gurmani so much, he wanted to do seva of the Guru. And that's the stories that we have. Those are our Sakhis. They're all about the seva that Guru Amardas Ji did for Guru Angad Dev Ji. Like carrying the water, 5K, like people point out, it's like a 5K run. He's doing this every day, carrying this big thing of water. He did everything. Anybody that came there, he was doing the seva for them. He was dedicated to the Guru. Anything the Guru told him to do, he did it. And because he was listening to the Guru, because he was doing seva of the Guru, he got transformed. He got transformed into somebody who had the spirituality but wasn't making progress into what was ultimately the Guru. Okay? So it's significant that not just Jivan Mukti meaning that while you are alive, you have destroyed the cycle of birth and death and you are one with Vaheguru. It's not something that happens to you when you're dead. It happens to you while you're alive. Not only did he achieve that, but he was chosen to be the next Guru. And there's a couple points I want to make about that. Because a lot of times people question things. Why did the Guru say that or do that? Why did the Guru make them do this much work just to test them? You know, doesn't that seem egotistical? Or doesn't? Keep in mind that Guru Nanak Dev Ji acknowledged that he was the Guru of the Sikhs. Okay? He didn't call himself the Sikh. He was the Guru. And I'm not saying he called himself the Guru, but he pretty much told us that when he said, okay, Pailanaji, you're now the next Guru. So by saying, I'm the person, I'm going to be the next Guru, Guru Nanak Dev Ji is acknowledging he's the Guru. That's why we're the Sikhs. We're not the Guru, we're the Sikhs. We're the students. We're the disciples. The disciples are the people that follow the discipline of the Guru. The Guru gives us disciplines, we follow them. That's why we're disciples. So when we try to put ourselves into the Guru's shoes and see how they did things, it becomes very difficult to say. Now, there's some people that say, okay, Guru Sahib used to do Jaranamrit. Have people heard Jaranamrit? Guru Gobind Singh gave us Khandikipol. Before that, many people believe that the Gurus did Charanpol. And basically it was, the water was brought to the Guru, he stuck his toe in the water, and people drank that water to become Amrita. Before Guru Gobind Singh. And I've heard people say, well, doesn't that sound egotistical? No, that's the Guru. Not only did the Guru do that, we talked about one of the clues about the Manjis. The Manjis were literally Manjis, like cots, that the person sat on while everybody else sat on the ground, and they discoursed what the Guru's teachings were to the Sangha. They were empowered to also do things like Janmani by the Guru, the people that wanted to come. They dedicated themselves to the Guru. So, the Guru, by nature, is at a status higher than us. And the gurus themselves, when they say, hey, Shabad is the guru, that person had it before me, this is the next person that's going to have it, and then you have Guru Gobind Singh saying, that's now here. They're acknowledging their position with us. We have difficulty because of our clever mind. We have difficulty putting ourselves down underneath the guru. And we can prove it because most of us don't do what the guru says. It's our religion. It's the religion we belong to. We're not really interested in really doing what the guru says, because that would disrupt many things in our lives. But we got to reflect on that individually. Somebody else can't come and convince you, say, hey, Manshan, you've got to do this, you've got to wear this kind of cloth, you've got to do cloth like this. It just can't happen. That has to come from within. That's the end of my story. I hope you guys appreciated the fact that changing the setting sometimes on what the gurus did and bringing it to reality can sometimes help us connect a little bit better with what the gurus do. And sometimes it humbles us because we think we're so smart figuring out what the gurus did and what they said and what they meant. And sometimes it's just as simple as the gurus saying, here, read these Shabad, and then you feel like, oh man, this guy's brilliant, I'm going to do this, say it. Okay? So now, I'd like to start the discussion thing. How do you guys want, are you guys okay just sitting like this for a discussion? And I think we can carry over from Jasu's thing, because there wasn't much time for discussion in general. And it doesn't have to be only limited to what we talked about. If you feel like that there's some other questions or something else we want to discuss, we can do that. And I would encourage everybody to answer each other too. It doesn't, don't look to us for answers. We don't have the answers. The Guru has the answers. But we got to start trying. We got to start trying to read what the Guru is saying, trying to understand it. Don't even try. You're not getting it. All right. So what's the consensus? Just sit like this, or make a circle, or what? Just sit like this. Okay. Question. Okay, and use the mic. So okay, any questions, comments? Wait, okay, what do you guys think? Was that a good? Okay, go ahead. So, you are the mic.
The last part you said to me sort of was relevant for me. I mean, that one really was relevant for me with the whole putting, yourself in the middle of the guru and trying to get yourself beyond that mental block of, whatever that creates. So I'm trying to ask you, how do you get past that? I understand, that's something I don't think I should have even asked, just because, I understand I need to be reading more Gurbani to find those answers, but I figured that's just something that I thought was very relevant for my life. So.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if anybody can actually answer that either. It's something you have to answer for yourself. But there is, in your question, there is this idea of what is faith and what is your faith. I'm hearing that talking to you earlier too about it. I'm kind of bringing that in here. But you got to remember too, there's a difference between faith and blind faith. And I know some people are going to argue, oh no, when it comes to the Guru, have blind faith. Maybe that's what Nanaji would have done. Maybe that's what Guru Amar Das Ji did. Maybe they had that blind faith. I don't know. But I think it has to be built on something. That's what faith is. Faith is, I know this little bit about something, and my faith is that will continue to be true even in these other scenarios. For example, if I was hanging off a cliff, on the edge of the cliff, and I'm hanging there, and my dad is standing there, and he puts his hand down to pull me up. I know for a fact, because of my faith, this has never ever happened in my life. I've never ever been dangling off a cliff, and my father has never had to put his hand down to pull me up. But I know, because of my faith, because of my past experiences and relationships that I've built with my father over many years, that if he puts his arm down and I grab it, he may fall with me, but he's not going to let go. He will never let go. I have faith in that. That's faith. It's not I can't really say I know that's a fact. It's the faith I have that will happen. It's the same thing when it comes to the group. Find something that you found to be true that the group has said or done. You connect with it. And then build off of that and say, if the guru is right here, maybe the guru is right here on this other thing that I'm having doubts about. And just find out that little bit. What does the guru say about that? And try to bring that into yourself. Now you might have 2 things to build off of when that 3rd thing comes up. Now you'll have 3 things to build off of, and that faith will develop. As that faith develops, you'll transform. I don't know that that's going to happen. I'm just saying that's one way that I would look at that. You don't have to just say, okay, I just believe whatever the guru says because everybody says I'm supposed to. That's not what Sikh is. Sikh was never born into it whether you're Sikh. It's always you're making a conscious decision to follow what the guru is saying. That's why you're Sikh, because you're following what the guru says. One?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, well, not add specifically to this. Thank you for that answer. I liked it a lot. My other question was that I always try to think of spirituality like outside of Sikhism, like try to think of other people's viewpoints or put myself in their shoes if I was born into another religion. I don't know how. So my question is, let's say if I was born into another religion, what would be my path? Would my path be a dead end, or because I see a lot of truth in Sikhism, but do all roads lead to Sikhism, or you get what I'm saying?
No, I get what you're saying. The idea, what you're trying to say, I think, is if Sikhism is the true path, and other things don't seem true, then they're not valid paths, and you end up back at Sikhism. Even Guru Nanak Dev Ji, I know, I don't want to be controversial about this, but I know often, you'll see on Facebook, there is no Sikh, Hindu, Muslim, or Christian. There's only the human race. They got a picture of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. He never said that, okay? It's people, it sounds good. It sounds like something he might say, but you put his picture on it, put it in quotes, and it now says truth. There's a meme about Abraham Lincoln, right? Whatever. Everything on the internet is not true. Abraham Lincoln is not his picture. So there are things like that we believe because we've heard so many times. But what Guru Nanak Dev Ji actually said when he was talking to the Hindu, and Paul actually hit on a lot of this, is replace those earrings with the shovel. Replace your walking stick with dharam. Replace your meditation mat with humility. He gave them a formula. He substituted their beliefs with a new formula. Those same substitutions he told to a Muslim. There's a whole shabad about the Sharia, Yeah, that Salat Surat that shabad. That whole shabad is about the Sharia practices of the Muslims. They commit a sin. If you do this sin, you're supposed to pluck your hairs off your body with your fingers. To be pure, you must do circumcision in this way. And the shabad lists all these things. If you commit these sins, you have to lash your body until you bleed. Okay? These are all from some Sharia texts. And Guru Sahib takes every single one of those. He says, instead of lashing your body, lash your mind with humility. Instead of doing this, be content. Have contentment. And that last line that Sabat Surat, the Star Sadat, is actually saying is, keep your body intact. Sabat Surat. Don't pluck your hair. Don't cut your skin and manipulate yourself that way. Keep that intact, and that'll be the honor. That'll be your true honor. So that's what Guru Sahib is saying in Nashville. The teachings he gave to the Muslim, the teaching he gave to the Hindu, they're all the same. He didn't give them to them to change Hinduism or change Islam. He gave them to the people that are going to listen to what he's saying. And those people are us, the Sikhs of the group.
But for the people that are Muslims and Hindus,
We don't know. We don't know. Right? We don't know. We can't claim to know that either. Yeah, there's a moment.
It's like one of the questions that was asked earlier, I think during Mobile Virtues discussion. I don't exactly remember, but the answer was like, Sikh was not confrontational. Like, it was not his intention to like prove someone wrong or prove them inferior or their practice is inferior. It was just Guru Sahib speaking his truth, or the truth as it's known to us. So again, we don't know what they might do when they hear that truth or when they see us practicing or trying to practice it. Like, we can't go out in the world with like either out better or they gotta know why I'm doing this. It's just that it's the truth for us. And if they see something in it, that's up to them, whoever that is in this scenario. But yeah, like it's the truth. Like, that's our duty to recognize the truth and practice it. Bakiyan jo karna hoga.
And actually, the Shabad Pule Marg, Jine Pataya, Asa Gurmat Pali Maya. That Shabad is saying that because our mind is the way it is, we start getting on off path. We start getting on a forgotten path, away from what our true path was. And the Guru is such that we get you back on the right path. Grab you by the arm and pull you out of the ocean. That's what that Shabad goes into, the kind of imagery it uses. So, I think, personally, all of us here, we all want to take the Guru Granth Sahib. We're accepting that Guru Granth Sahib is our Guru. I think we're extremely, extremely lucky. I mean, in Gurbani it says, whether it's an analogy or whether it's literal, it says that you've gone through millions of lives to be here. Whether you want to believe it's the transmigration of the soul through many life forms of birth and death, or whether it's the evolutionary process from a single cell animal to what we are today. However you want to look at it, Gurbani is telling us that we are extremely lucky to have this life. Govind Milan ki etari badiya. What is it? Yeah, so the whole point is that this is a gift, this human body is a gift. The whole point of this gift is to go in, to get to Waheguru, and this is your chance to do that. You're lucky to have this chance. And nothing else you do is of any value. Mere man naam nit le, Jimmy, what is that? Jimmy naam prasad, yeah. And what's the next one? Yeah, what's the nonic line at the end? It's the only thing that's going to be of any value. This is the only work that you can do that's of any value. And, controversial as this might sound, I'm going to say that it doesn't matter. Feeding the homeless, Habitat for Humanity, going to Nepal and saving, none of that stuff is what Guru Sahib is talking about. He's saying that doing Nam is the only thing. It does not mean you don't do those things. As a Sikh, you could say it's your duty to do those things on a mission for the Guru. But you can't do those devoid of Nam. The only thing of the value is that Nam. It even erases those good deeds that you're doing, that Nam does. It erases those good deeds off your slate.
So, going to Nepal and helping people recover, that can't be a form of Nam?
I don't think so in and of itself.
What would make it?
It's where your attention is, where your dhyan is. Because there's atheists that will do that.
Right.
So that act of helping those people, Guru Sahib is saying, is not enough. It's where is your dhyan? Is it on Nam? Or is it on the fact that I'm helping you? Come back and tell everybody your story, show them all the photos, post them on Facebook, and everybody knows that you're a hero. So I'm not saying not to do those. I want to be clear. Those things are great things to do, and we do those as part of our mission with the Guru. The Guru has told us things outside of our body, that this is the lifestyle we're going to lead. And he showed us through his own life itself that this is what we're going to do. Just like in my example, Umar, he didn't stop being a family man, a businessman, doing volunteer work, but his mother changed, his attention changed, it went somewhere else.
But isn't that different than just saying going to the hall or helping the like commission or something?
It's just not useful at all. Yeah, I think that's the. Huh?
Can you please start your question?
Oh, I was asking what you just said. Isn't that kind of a slippery, dangerous slope? Because the Guru's mission was never divorced from social activism. And when you said, it depends on where your mind is at the time, I think it can be a little bit misleading, I guess, to hear that.
I know, and that's why I knew it was going to be a controversial statement. But here's what I'm getting at. Gurbani is a philosophy. Gurbani is telling us what our actual mission in life is. It's only one thing. Okay? And even in Asarivar, we read that whole thing is about scholars that used to read tons of books and they would debate each other. And when they would debate each other, they would win the other guy's books. Okay? So they would go town to town with their wagon of books. They're going to be behind them of all the books and knowledge they've gathered. They come in and they say, hey, I'm going to debate your best debater. And they would go at it and they would show all their knowledge. And they would take all of that. And then they would debate. So whoever won gets all the books and they leave, go to the next town. And they would talk about these kinds of things. What is life? What is the purpose of life? What should we do? Socrates and Plato, these kinds of philosophers, like that kind of thinking. And Guru Sahib says, everything else is speaking in ego. There's only one thing that Guru Sahib said to do. Any other thing you do will not get you anywhere. Your whole purpose is to be one with Vairu. And Nam is the only thing that does it. What Nam actually is, I'm not saying Nam is sitting down and saying Vairu, Vairu. It might be. It might be for one person, maybe it's not for another, or it might just be what the Guru wants. I don't know. I'm trying not to put Vairu in that box. Define it for yourself. But do whatever you define it to be. But keep in mind that your concentration, your motivating force is not your ego, not the good that you can do. That's not what the Guru tells you. Don't be that force. Do whatever you do because it's driven by this desire to be with Vairu. There's a difference. Okay, we can see Mandheer and then go.
I just wanted to mention that one of the places where you can get the Nam is the Gurbani. A very important line of Guru Granth Sahib, Jan Nanak Bole Gurmat. Gurbani har Naam Samay. I am telling you, Guru Sahib says in the Shabad, I am telling you a fundamental truth, a good body, a virtuous body, that in Gurbani itself, Naam is hidden. And that Naam one should serve, that means continuous research on Gurbani will bring you closer to God. That's one. And another thing is, just looking at the teaching, various things that the Gurbani tells you again and again will make you closer to Vairu. Vairu itself is not. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਪ੍ਰਥਮੇ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਹੈ ਸਭੋ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜੀ ਕੋ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ 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 ਚਿੱਤੇ ਆਵੇ ਚਿਤਾਵਨ ਕਾ ਸਦਕਾ ਸਰਬ ਸੁਖ ਹੋ so that's the very important thing that ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਚਿੱਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਵੇ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ should reside deep down in your mind and that residence of ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ in the mind itself presence of Naam in the mind. So that's what my understanding is from sharing.
Yeah, Uncle, thank you for sharing that. Kind of to piggyback on that, the idea of Bani, Shabad, Guru, Nam, these all are the same things. Bani, Guru, Guru hai Bani, which Bani, Amrit Sari. So all the Amrit that are in Nam, Amrit Nam, Nam. Here's a good one. I like this one. Pyoda Deka Khol Ditta Khajana. Khave Kharche Ralmil Pai, Totna Ave Bad Khojai. Okay, what they're saying is, Guru Sahib is saying, what I've learned from my forefathers, meaning the Gurus before him, that's what Pyoda Deka is in this Shabad. The Gurus before him, what he's learned. I think it's Guru Amardas from my Guru Ramdas, I'm not sure.
That's the well thought of the
Yeah. And then,
Hanuman Bhagat Sachman,
right.
Bhargam Ram, Sahaj.
So,
because of Nam, we are rich, we are wealthy, and what is that? What Nam is? Hargun Nam says that instantly it came out from your mouth without any effort. It's an effortless singing that comes out, and that's what Nam is.
in that line, Kave Karte Ralamila Pai. Kave Karte, eat and spend as much as you get together, and eat and spend as much of it as you want. Kave Karte Ralamila Pai. Totna Ave means the end will never come. Yeah, Totna Ave Vad Bojai. And the end will never come, and it'll just keep increasing, it keeps increasing, it increases forever. That's what the Nam is. Now, again, I'm not trying to be controversial. I don't want to ruffle too many feathers, but again, I want to challenge our normal thinking about things. Guru Sahib never says anywhere, give me 1,000 arms to feed the homeless. It does say, give me 1,000 tongues to jap Nam. Now, what is jap Nam? Again, we can get into debate on that. But every time you see the concept of Nam te aaya, bolo pai, uchuro Ram Nam lakhwai, uchuro, bolo, japo ta eko Nam. This is the language that Guru Sahib is using. And he says, use your tongue for that. Don't use your tongue to go after pleasures of food and debate and talking, things like that. But again, it's because there's something that has to happen different in here. Doesn't mean that we don't do the good work. Any more comments? What do you guys think about? Okay,
Excellent presentation.
just take this one.
Overall, excellent presentation. I'm actually looking for any online resources you have for us so we can get a clear, crisp understanding of Gurbani. And then there's like also problems with that because there's so many different people out there, so many different translations, and then how do we know which one is right? How do we know what you're saying is right? And then why should we even bother doing the right one? Right? Like, that's a problem. Because I think the problem, especially me, is that we don't have access to the Guru Granth Sahib. Like, I don't have one at Downtown Toronto. There might be only one at all Downtown Toronto, right? For all of them. And then, yes, we have online resources, but then we are never, I guess, guided towards specific websites. So if you give me one, allabout6.com, I'll check it out.
Great resource for history.
Yeah, that seems like a really great resource for history. Otherwise, something specifically Shri Guru Granth Sahib triggered towards that, something maybe we can do like once a day. We look at it, we understand a section of it, or even we try to understand a section of it, right? Resources.
So the first thing, you're asking how do you know what's right? None of us can say we know. Like you said, how do you know what I said is right? I don't even know if what I said is right. I'm just sharing you what I understand. But we do ardas every day, and we ask for the big word. That is, we're asking God every day we do ardas. We ask that give me the ability to determine what is right and what is wrong. That's what we're asking when we say the big thumb. That what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong. So I would say that put your faith into Waheguru and have that ardas inside of you all the time that Waheguru take me where your sangat is, the sangat that you like, the sangat that you approve of. Take me there. Give me the understanding. Help me learn. And whatever you come across, I don't care who it is. Katha Logics, Sikh to the Max, SikhToTheMax.com has all the English translations you can read. Gurmat on there. There's a bunch of Gurmat websites that have English translations, and some of them, like City.com, has by Singh explanations, long Punjabi background, but it's a great resource for that. But that's not necessarily right either. He spent 30 years of his life compiling this, like in the early 1900s. But that doesn't necessarily make him right either. Only the Guru is right. But you got to keep making that effort. Make some, I would say, conscious. It's got to be a conscious effort to learn and be open to whatever you hear, but don't get stuck on anything. Constantly ask the Guru for give you what's right on football.
Yeah, I have a question about. No, sorry, it's I have a question about resources. I'll try to just be loud. How's that? All right. So, is there a site you know of that has sort of multiple translations or DK or whatever, sort of side by side? You know, like for the Bible, there's a gazillion sites where you
Bible,
compare things.
they all have.
But for Gurmat Sahib, I'm not aware of any that has like multiple things you can compare. I know there's more than one translation out there. There might not be a gazillion, but there's more than one, and I don't know anywhere where you can compare them.
Actually, there's not really that many. There's some translations based on other translations. So there was like one English translation done. There was another English translation done. And almost everybody else has some form of one of those two. And then you have some Punjabi, there's there's myself Singh. They have differences. But those are the generally some of the common ones. I don't know of any site that has maybe those two together.
Yeah, I don't know if you're citygraph.org.
But he has both Okay, there's the problem. So, first of all, did you hear that? That's citygroup.org. Citygroup.org. Citygroup.org does have drop-downs.
So on that website, you can do all the different tikas, you can do the different 2 English versions, and over certain words, you can hover and actually tell you the words of certain Shabbats as well.
But again, don't get stuck on that. Don't just believe it. Because as a matter of fact, sometimes I would say the actual Gurbani is easier to understand than the English translation that's been put up there. There's a lot of D's and thous and this kind of stuff, and all it says is Guru Paras Ambo. Guru is the Paras and I'm iron. 4 words. You know. Hang on, I gotta go back there.
They wanted to add regarding good word and noun. I think that they are not separate from each other, because Guruji says that आपी ने आप साजियो आपी ने रचे नाम वही गुरु साजिए रासन जटो चाओ. Waheguru resides in all, so to take care of everyone is basically devoting yourself to Waheguru. That's why Guruji in Gurbani also says, "Is dunya se tumaiye, ta dargah basan paiye." So that's why ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੇ 3 ਪ੍ਰਿੰਸੀਪਲ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਨਾਮ ਜਪਣਾ, ਕਿਰਤ ਕਰਨੀ, ਵੰਡ ਕੇ ਛਕਣਾ, ਜਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਨਾਮ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਐਂਡ ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇਰੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਸੇ ਵੱਧਦਾ ਭਲਾ. So doing good work is also become naam japna. If you think your dhyan is in meeting God, as you said.
And I think that's the key, because we know that there are people that don't even believe in God at all. And they will do a lot of good work.
That's
and not only will they not believe in God, they will say like nasty things about people who believe in God or God, the idea of God in general. I have a hard time accepting that that would be non-judgmental because they're still committing the work. But that's just me having that. I don't know how white people work.
Yeah, Guruji says about that, Jihapa Okeha Falpaiye. So whatever you are belonging, that's where it's taking you. So if you are doing all this to become one with Vaidu and seeing Vaidu in everything and seeking goodwill of everyone or everything, then you are coming close to Vaidu.
And also Nasibar does say that there are people who do good deeds only to become known as someone who does good deeds.
If it's feeding your ego, then it's not good.
It's useless. It's actually the opposite effect of what Purakh is telling us.
So I used to read Shrivan.org with my sister and my mom as a kid growing up, and then I got bored of it easily. And I think if I start doing it now, I'll get bored of it even more easily. Because I did before, it didn't have any value to my life. If I do it now, I don't think it's like developed in a friendly manner adhered to my circumstances at hand. Because of what I'm being exposed to every day, that's like just a website with a bunch of words, and all you can do on that website is scroll down, right? And then you can click the words, see the definition, and then I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not the nicest format. Is there anything, but I guess that includes multimedia presentations like what you do. This is amazing. That's the reason I came to this retreat, to find more something I can connect to, like your presentation, instead of just scrolling down a web page and losing interest in a couple of days.
I really don't know how to really address that specifically because my thinking is, based on what you just said, just keep it simple, silly. Start doing movement every day and try to connect with just that movement. It's not difficult to understand the words of movement. And again, you said that you did that when you were growing up as a kid. You lift weights now, right? If you go to the gym, you lift weights, right? Do you think it would help when you were a kid, or does it have more impact now that you have a certain maturity, your body has a certain maturity? So maybe think about it that way too. It might be worth revisiting things that you looked at as a child when you broke that brain that has a different impact.
There's an email server type thing that's called a word a thought a day. I'm sure most of you have heard of it, but that's a nice resource. That's like one word a day, Gurmani word that's translated. That's different. This is different. This is just one word. It just takes one word, translates it for you, and then it gives you a ton of different examples and explains it in different ways and gives you lots of different thoughts. It's really nice, and it's just one word a day, which is a nice place to start. Then when you see that word again, you remember it. A word, a thought. AWAT, a word, a thought.
This comment isn't directed directly to you, but to the kind of thinking that I myself have, and I think many of us tend to have. And do you remember? Okay, so your comment was, and I don't mean to but it was basically, I get bored really easily, and so can you make this more entertaining for me? So the topic today was, you need to meet the Sadguru. You need to do this urgently. You are separated from Vaidu, and you don't even know when your next breath is going to come. And so Gurmani says, Har japtya kinatil nagi jai meri jindagi hai. And basically it's saying, don't even waste a second, because sa ave ke na avera. You don't know when your next breath will come or not come. And here you are, and I'm not saying to you directly, but I'm just using that as an example. Anybody could have said anything. And here you are complaining about being bored, or you're busy, or whatever other excuses that we make every day. And Guru Sahib is probably like, forehead slap, and like, here I am telling you very clearly what your gum should be, what you're supposed to be doing. And here you are, like, wasting your time. Guru Sahib says very clearly, you're wasting your time. And so, I mean, part of it obviously is the mind, and that, our mind is very strong. Those rog are very strong, and they do manipulate us from seeing. I mean, today we were on that canoe, and we were just trying to go straight. And we could not get the boat to go straight. I mean, that is exactly like the rog. It keeps maneuvering you in a different direction than you're supposed to. But basically, I just want to get to the point of, I think it's great. We should have the conversations on what are the best resources, what are we all using to do our presentations and things. But at the end of it, I feel like my thing, and maybe it's because I'm just getting old, we need to stop making excuses and just do something. Even if it's the smallest, littlest thing. And I'm saying that to myself, not to anyone here. But, let's read Gurbani and implement it.
And also, we don't have to work the system backwards. A lot of times, we think we know something, like we think we can see Wagyu everywhere. We think we see Wagyu in everyone. We think we see Wagyu in nature. We can't work backwards. I also know what it takes to become a professional bodybuilder. I clearly don't do that. Okay, but I know what it takes. I see the dedication, how you gotta eat, how you gotta train. They eat, sleep, drink, bodybuilding, or basketball, or business, whatever their field is. These people eat, sleep, drink it. There's a book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. It's advice that Dale Carnegie gave him, that he studied all the people like Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, and they used this system on how these people became successful business people, made a lot of money. And the whole book is about, you have to think about being rich, you have to want it really bad, and because you're always thinking about it, you will now start acting on it, you will naturally go in that direction, and eventually you will become rich. It will become a reality for you because it consumes you. You eat, drink, and sleep it. Gurbani tells us to do the same thing with knowledge. Okay? The same concepts apply. All these business gurus and financial gurus are out there using a lot of what the guru's process is for us to become ek with Waigu, Atma Paramatma Eko Kare, right? The teachings, the methodology, the systematic daily, that's another thing, Think and Grow Rich, they tell you, write your affirmations down. I want to be rich. I want to make $10 million by the time I'm 45, whatever. Write them down, recite them every day as soon as you wake up, and every night before you go to bed. Sounds like a nickname. Okay, we've got the same formula for our salvation. And not only that, Guru's saying that the walk that we had this morning, that no, these kinds of things chase after you. Become my funny story. Real quick, because we've got to end right now. My buddy Harvey, when he first started hanging out with me, like 96 or whatever, we were in my car, and I had a delivery tape playing. And when he got in the car, sat down, he sits down, he looks at me, he's like, hey, what's going on? And the Shabbat is repeating this line. It was like, no, Rocky does everything. The line, he said, Piche lagiyan fere, piche lagiyan fere. Everybody looks at me and goes, what are you listening to? I'm like, I'm not talking about girls. He's talking about Navin taught us that these magical powers and things like that will chase after. So, that was just a little fun story. I got just to end the whole thing. Is there any, I guess if there's any other questions, Monday? Okay. All right, well, thanks for your time. I hope you enjoyed it. And I guess, why would you go to